Hello friends and fellow gamers, it's MKxJUMP here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the Idle Heroes PvE tier list for August 2020. Now I know how much you guys have been asking for this video and you probably want me to hurry up and get on with it, but let me announce a giveaway I'll be doing very soon. In a couple days time, on the 25th of August, Tuesday, we'll be doing a giveaway on my Twitch channel, so join us at twitch.tv/MKxJUMP at 7 PM GMT for this giveaway. We're going to be giving away CD keys to some lucky winners, and all you have to do to take part is join our Twitch giveaway. Basically, you just have to tune in and be there in chat, so you just have to follow the channel, super easy. And yeah, also, why don't you consider subscribing, because I know that lots of the people that view this channel, many of you don't even subscribe, so just take that moment to subscribe. It might feel like something tedious and mundane, you think, why do I want this guy coming up? Well, you probably watch a lot of my videos, so just hit that subscribe button, it helps me out a lot. So I know it's just something a lot of you don't think about, because I mean 2/3 of my audience aren't subscribed, but just click it. Go on, guys. Just all you have to do, give it a click. It's just down there below in the video. If you're not watching this on YouTube, load up YouTube, go find the subscribe button and just click it, please. But yes, anyway, enough about subscribing. Make sure you join me at twitch.tv/MKxJUMP. Links in the description for that giveaway on Tuesday, okay? Tuesday at 7 GMT. Now, let's go take a look at the PvE tier list for August 2020. So, like last time, I've split this tier list into two separate categories. We have our damage dealers, the heroes that help us do as much damage as possible, and we have our support heroes, the heroes that are designed to debuff opponents, or maybe buff our heroes, and also heal our heroes to stop them from dying. There's also some fundamental things you need to consider when building your team. The first thing is Heartwatcher. Heartwatcher is a compulsory hero. Heartwatcher increases the damage dealt by your entire team by around 4 times. That's a lot of damage. You might look at her and go, oh, Heartwatcher isn't really doing anything, but trust me, if you can keep her alive and you can get her Watcher marks out, your entire team will do more damage. So PvE 101 when fighting against Broken Spaces or Flame Shrine is have a Heartwatcher, because you will do a lot more damage. So if you don't already know, guys, get those Heartwatchers built. It doesn't matter if it's a 5-star, 6-star, 9-star, 10-star, or E3. I wouldn't take it to E5. I think E3 is as high as you want to go so that you can get Purify to stop her getting CC'd. But generally, if you've got a Heartwatcher, the important thing is keeping her alive. So if she starts dying, maybe you want to consider leveling her up. But basically, have a Heartwatcher, you'll do a lot of damage. The other compulsory thing you need is a good pet. Now, I say compulsory, I've seen people actually succeed without using a Phoenix pet or a wolf pet, sometimes a snake pet if you want to go for synergy in the poison direction, but I really wouldn't encourage people to focus on a poison team for PvE. So I argue that you need Phoenix or wolf. But yes, people have done well with others. But anyway, Phoenix and Wolf will give you a boost to 4 of your heroes that will increase their damage by 80% versus burning targets if it's Phoenix, and versus bleeding targets if it's Wolf. Now, the passive bleed/burn that these heroes do not count as the triggered effect for themselves, so you need to run a hero, in Phoenix's case, that can burn, or in Wolf's case, that can bleed. So some heroes I'd recommend are Sigmund, fantastic burn hero, or Deathsworn. He has a burn that lasts 15 rounds. That's brilliant, because boss fights last 15 rounds, so that's perfect. So running a Deathsworn, you don't even have to level him up. You can use a 5-star Deathsworn, even a 4-star Deathsworn, and just maybe give them an energy artifact. You might not have to. Sometimes I use a 6-star Deathsworn. It just doesn't matter, as long as you get that burn out. Now for Wolf, you want a hero that can bleed. Good examples are A.Brk and Moog, but Nakia is generally one I'd recommend because her bleed lasts for 15 rounds, so it's another one that you don't really have to worry about. You could just stick in a 6-star Nakia, and as long as she gets that bleed out, you're fine. You're sorted, you're away. So it's a good idea to have lower level versions of these heroes that either you can keep alive in Sigmund's case, or in your damage dealer's case if it's someone like an A.Brk, for example, that's a damage dealer that can give burn or bleed. Or someone like Deathsworn or a low level Nakia that will just do it anyway, and then once they're dead, it's still going to sit there and allow you to benefit from the monster's damage. So that's the important thing. You need to have a hero that can give the burn or bleed that monster so desires to increase the overall damage of your team. Now in PvE, as I said, you are going to need support heroes to help your damage dealers out. So what I've done in this tier list is, rather than ranking all the support heroes, I've given you a selection of good choices. For example, if you need to stay alive, someone like Amivor is great because she offers Guardian Shadow, which are bubbles that protect you from damage. Other examples could be Belrain or Vesa, who can heal. Belrain also comes with the ability to boost your attack, to boost your speed, and all other healing effects. Belrain also removes CC. So you can see, just by having a peruse through the different effects that these heroes have, you can see how they benefit your team. So some heroes will boost attack, others will boost holy damage, some will boost crit, some will debuff enemies, some will buff your heroes, etc, etc. Some fantastic ones I'd recommend you guys having is Rogan, for example, who has a lot of boosts that he gives at the end of rounds. These work really well, especially with assassins, because he boosts them twice as much. So he's going to give you plus 20% attack and plus 10% crit, two fantastic stats for PvE. Another hero I'd recommend is Olivia, because she can shrink enemies, which will increase the damage you do to them and decrease the damage they do back to you. If you need healing, you've got Ignis, Ormus, you've got Belrain, even A.Brk can heal. Cruz has a little bit of healing as well, and Vesa is another pretty decent healer. Gustin also can heal, but his main purpose is to remove CC and negative effects such as poison from, for example, the Broken Spaces wave, which has Oberon and Corpse Demon, because you have to deal with freeze, twine, and poison. Pretty horrible, so it's nice to have a Gustin in there who can help by removing these effects. So it's worth giving these heroes a look, see which ones are going to help you out, and there are some that synergize better with other heroes. So for example, if you're running a Garuda, A.Brk works really well because the holy damage boost he gives is fantastic with Garuda's passive and active damage. If you're looking for a low-level team and you just need someone you can chuck in that can boost your heroes quickly, Emily is great because she gets knocked down below half health and she's going to buff the attack of your entire team. Now if you're going against Guild Raid, for example, and you're not a very high-level player, this is a brilliant strategy because you're only probably going to last 4 or 5 rounds, so you want as much damage as possible. Stick in an Emily, she's going to buff your team, you'll do lots of damage, and then you'll probably die. Now, that's why Emily would shine in a situation such as that. But if you needed someone to maybe reduce the amount of damage enemies were doing, you could go and look across at someone like Carry, because Carry energy steals opponents, and bosses get most of their damage from active skills. So if you need to protect your heroes from nasty active skills, you might want to consider running a Carry in your PvE team to steal the energy from the opponents. So I hope that you can see how the different effects these heroes have can benefit your team, and it's worth having a look at their abilities and working that out for yourself. If you're still not sure, I'd encourage you to join our Discord. There are several Discords out there. I've got one, Barry Gaming's got one, there's a larger one for the community that's you can find on Reddit, and there's also Reddit itself, there's Facebook groups, there's loads of places you can go around and ask people for advice on what PvE heroes you could use. You could also join my Patreon and get access to the Patreon chat we have on Discord, and then you can message me directly or message some of my really, really intelligent and fantastic Patreon users. So there's lots of options for you guys if you need further advice. But now guys, that's support heroes covered, let's go look at your meat and potatoes, your damage dealers. So the first thing I hope you notice is a lot has changed. We've had the release of Drake, we've had the release of Russell, and we've had, I'd say, since I last made this list, Sherlock came out, Rogan came out, we've had Ignis as well. Yeah, so we've had a lot of heroes, and we've had a lot more time to test the heroes we've already been given in 2020. So take a look at the S tier, guys. At the top, we have Drake, Russell, Kthuga, multiple Delaciums, and Garuda. Now, one caveat I want to say is that you could argue that multiple Delaciums is in a tier of its own if you use it with Kthuga, and that very specific team, yes, will deal an insane amount of damage, but there's also the argument that you only really need to do so much damage in PvE that doing that much damage is excessive. So I will say it now, yes, multiple Delaciums within Kthuga is insane. Go check out GDP. He will show you how that works and how much damage he can deal with that team. It's ridiculous, it's silly. But I want to kind of give a holistic view that I'm not just saying, build that one team, because that would be boring. Because there are other teams that do very well. For example, teams with Garudas do well. Russell and Drake work really well together if you've seen the damage I've done in Broken Spaces. I'll put a link up there just above where I am right now, and you'll be able to click that link and go check out where I did Broken Spaces in 18 tries. There's lots of different teams that do very well in PvE at the moment. Now, the pinnacle hero that's making this all possible is Drake. And you could argue he's a support hero, but I would put him in damage dealers S tier because he's just that darn good. He removes all of the enemy's defenses and therefore allows your other heroes to do loads of damage. I would argue he's almost as compulsory as a Heart Watcher. Drake is nuts. We've got two heroes now which are our pinnacle burst heroes, Garuda and Russell. They just work so well at dealing massive damage on opponents. Garuda hits like a truck, she gets her passive damage from feathers, and Russell gets his passive damage from his arrows, and also his active skill is huge. These two heroes are phenomenal. Give them something like a Glittery Antlers cane, and they are popping off hard. So Russell, Garuda, give them a check out. Now, as I already said, A.Brk is a fantastic hero that gives bleed and damage over time, and Delacium enhances this to make himself and A.Brk deal more damage. So if you want a really good core, 2 Delaciums and an A.Brk is also another great way to go. Throw in a Drake in all of these teams and you'll be impressed, and they make up for pretty much the pinnacle of PvE teams at the moment. So here's some example builds you could do. Let's go with, for example, a Russell team. Look at the team I'm using to beat Broken Spaces 7. I go with a Russell, I then put in a Drake, I use Amon-Ra to protect me, I use Belrain to protect me, I have Deathsworn to give me burn, and then I use Heartwatcher, and that's going to pretty much do well in Broken Spaces 7, and then once I've defeated that Aspen, I remove the Amon-Ra, because I don't need it for protection, and then I stick in a Garuda to deal even more damage. Brilliant. Now you could run a very similar team with 2 Garudas, you could even chuck a Gurk in there to give extra holy damage to your Garudas, and you're still going to be popping off. Let's say you want to throw a Sigmund in there for burn and armor reduction instead of Deathsworn, that would get you even more damage. So there's lots of options for you guys out there, and of course there's the great Delacium teams that are doing really well at the moment. So let's say you're running 2 Delaciums, let's put in an A.Brk, let's say we've got Sigmund for burn, and obviously we want Drake and Heartwatcher, a really good team. If you need a bit of healing in there, okay, you might need to switch in someone like Belrain, but you could probably get away with using the final enable balance strike that gives healing. That's also a great way to keep your heroes alive. So there's lots of options you can do there to basically, as long as your heroes stay alive, you'll do well, you'll deal lots of damage, and whether you use Russell, it's Delacium, A.Brk, Garuda, you're going to deal a lot of damage and be very satisfied. But they're not the only heroes worth running. If we step down the tier list, we have other heroes that do well in different times. So in the A tier, for example, we have Aspen, who deals great burst damage and even more damage against enemies below 35% HP. I was using Aspen for a very long time in PvE until Russell and Drake came out. We have Dasmogue, a hero who benefits from other heroes' active skills, which boost his own skill damage, and progressively he'll do more and more damage. People like using 2 Dasmogues together to really get this tandeming damage going, but there is one tiny problem, and it's that Dasmogue's not very good in other areas of the game, so we often encourage you not to build a Dasmogue. But there are people out there that have 2 and do very well. Sigmund, here we go, another fantastic damage dealing hero that's able to debuff armor and burn opponents, so he gives you that synergy you need for Phoenix. He debuffs and shreds away opponents' armor and has counterattack, he has marks, he's a really good all-round hero. And you might think, hey MK, you've dropped him down from S tier to A tier. Yeah, Drake is that good that Drake's armor debuff has kind of rendered a Sigmund redundant. That doesn't mean Sigmund's bad. No, it doesn't mean you shouldn't run Sigmund and Drake together. No, you can still do that and do very well. But I would argue that Drake's just that little bit better, that we need to differentiate between the two, so Sigmund's dropped down. Also, Sigmund isn't as popular on some PvE teams these days because people just prefer to use a 5-star Deathsworn with a magic source, because let's look at it this way, guys. Are you going to build a whole E5 Sigmund, or do you want a 5-star hero? That's just significantly better resources. Also, you don't need to upgrade the stone on a Deathsworn to get his burn benefit. Also, when he's dead, he's gone. He's gone, he's out of it. So you only have 5 heroes remaining, which means the chance of your Phoenix buff landing on a hero you need it to is increased. And it also means the chance of your Belrain buff landing on a hero you need it to is increased, because both of these effects only hit 4 heroes. So you don't want it to land on Deathsworn and Heartwatcher, because you'd be like, oh, damn, what am I going to do there? So it's nice that Deathsworn gets himself out the way, which means it's more likely to land on your A.Brk, on your Russell, on your Garuda, for example. Now, here's Delacium on his own. We've put him up in A tier because, yes, Delacium on his own can still deal a lot of damage. He is a very, very powerful hero, and if you synergize him with heroes that offer debuffs or negative effects, Delacium can make that work really well. If you pair him with an A.Brk, he's going to do fantastically well. If you pair him with more Delaciums, it just starts getting silly, which is why that's in the S tier. Next, we've got Nakia, a hero who's really well built for PvE, and I've moved up the list because I just like her that much at the moment. Like, she offers really good bleed. When she crits, even more bleed. And synergize her with a Rogan, and you get a lot more damage, because Rogan increases attack and crit of assassins twice over. So she's an assassin, she benefits from that. really clean. Also, we've got Scary. Now, you'll notice I've dipped Scary below as well. Scary armies used to dominate the PvE scene, but more and more people are moving away from this because it's much easier to do it with Drake, Russells, Ithaquas, and Delaciums. And the biggest thing for Drake and Russell is they're also exceptionally useful in PvP. The same goes for Garuda. So people are leaning away from building Scary armies because Scary armies just don't do what they used to do in PvP anymore. So if you want to be much more well-rounded in PvP and PvE, you want to be moving away from running Scary armies. Also, with Drake around, that's another hero you want to put in, which means one less Scary that you're running, and it often gets to a point where you just think, oh, I might as well just be using the other heroes. So I do not like Scary armies as much as I like Delacium armies and Russells and Garudas at the moment, so that's why that's moved down to the A tier. It doesn't mean it's bad, it just means I encourage you guys less to go down that route. Stepping down now to B tier, we find heroes that just do pretty darn good in PvE, but nothing like we've seen from some of the crazy numbers we get these days. We've got Amivor, Asmodol, Tara, Horus, Penny, Berea, Single Scary, and Rogan. These all do fairly good damage, they can probably reach 1 billion or a little bit more, and they're all well built to do different amounts of damage. Amivor has fantastic burst against opponents. Some people don't rate him, but really go ahead and read Amivor. He's a very good hero, and he can boost his own energy. So he gets more active skills than most other heroes, so that's very good. Combining with a Rogan, even more damage because he's an assassin. Look at Asmodol. Asmodol gives marks to opponents, which means when you crit, they trigger, dealing more damage. So if you build your Asmodol to be a mark giver, where he's giving lots of marks to opponents and then boom, you blow them up with crits, that's awesome. You guys should hopefully know what I'm talking about. Tara just is a really well-rounded hero that deals lots of damage from all of Tara's different abilities. We've got Horus, great burst. We've got Penny, fantastic crit hitter. We've got Berea, a hero that a lot of people don't rate, but Berea buffs himself at the end of rounds and gets progressively stronger and stronger. The only issue with Berea is he specifically targets frontline enemies, which means in Flame Shrine, he's not very good at all because it means he's only hitting the front one, not the back two. However, in Broken Spaces, where both enemies are both at the front, you're going to do really well. So Berea does great in Broken Spaces, less so in Flame Shrine. He's kind of sucky there. And then we've got Scary and Rogan, two heroes that do okay, but they're much more centered around either specific synergies, such as Scary working with lots of Scaries, and Rogan is mainly there to buff other assassins, but actually can do very well on his own. For example, he has guaranteed crit against enemies that have less than 50% HP, so if you can get his crit damage up, Rogan's going to be popping off. Sure, nowhere near as much as the heroes we see higher on the list, but it's still a substantial amount of damage that can easily reach 1 billion. Now we get near to the bottom of the list. I don't really want to talk too much about this, but I will cover the C tier relatively in depth. Dark Arthendoll, a hero you've seen higher up this list in the past, but now I actively do not encourage you to build Dark Arthendoll at all. Dark Arthendoll's main uses in idle heroes at the moment are to beat Seal Land 20, which can be done anyway with an Amun-Ra and a Drake and some little baby Amun-Ras, and maybe some tiny carries in there as well. And also to smash Broken Spaces Stage 7, which, I'll be honest guys, can be easily done with most teams now as long as you have a Drake and a Heart Watcher and you're actually building a very well synergized team. So when it comes to building light and dark heroes, I'm not going to tell you to build a Dark Arthendoll to beat Broken Spaces 7. That is now Drake's job. Drake is just the new hero that's just swamped all the other dark heroes when it comes to performance in areas of the game. So Dark Arthendoll, I'm sorry, her only use is Broken Spaces Stage 7, because if you don't know, the way Dark Arthendoll works is she gets buffed as she takes damage. And she gets the faction bonus against the Ada in Broken Spaces Stage 7, and also those two heroes, the Ada and the Aspen, deal so much damage, the Dark Arthendoll gets buffed loads and loads and loads and loads. However, it's not that exciting if you're running a Dark Arthendoll that can't take a lot of damage, or you're fighting a boss that isn't dealing that much damage. And then she really doesn't pop off that much because she isn't getting hit hard enough to gain massive amounts of skill damage. So you start seeing your Dark Arthendoll underperform, and then you think, ugh, why am I doing this? This really isn't that good. So yeah, I lean away from Dark Arthendoll. She can do great damage, but I wouldn't say to build her. Next, we've got Ada. A lot of you might be using an Ada and go, hey, geez, Ada does the most damage of the hero in my team. How you got it this low on the list? It's because Ada, surprise, surprise, doesn't synergize with Heart Watcher very well. Sure, she's a great hero. Sure, Ada does a lot of damage, but it's not that much compared to other heroes. It will feel like a lot if you're just starting to get into PvE, but when you start finding the synergy combos that we use now, where we're using stupid stuff alongside Drake, etc., etc., you end up with a lot more damage. So Ada's good. but she's just not groundbreaking. The same goes for Faithblade. He deals some decent damage, but the thing that makes Faithblade really tick is when heroes die, he gains energy and gets another active skill. Now that's really good in things like Aspen Dungeon and earlier stages of PvP. But heroes don't die in PvE boss fights. When they're dead, you win. It's over. Doesn't matter if he gets his energy. So that main fundamental part of Faithblade's build really doesn't shine in PvE. Next, we've got Unimax, a hero who just is actually very consistent in PvE. He rages and then he gets 100% crit. Brilliant. He's actually pretty darn good at dealing damage and very tanky. Now, in early stages of PvE, this is going to be great, but again, you'll probably want to use some more nuanced synergies as you get further to deal even more damage. We've got Shire here, and Shire is actually a fantastic hero. She's an assassin, she benefits from Rogan, so you could argue maybe you should move her up the list a little bit higher, but okay, she's got her aggression marks, but sadly, unlike Russell, her aggression marks only trigger on her active skill, whereas Russell, it's whenever he attacks. Now, there are options to use Shire in particular ways, and the only thing that really slows her down is she has to get hit and block. Now, some enemies, especially in Broken Spaces and Flame Shrine, there's only 3 opponents, so she's not actually getting hit as much as she would in something like PvP, for example, where there's 6 enemies. So Shire doesn't get all the aggression marks she could possibly have and then pop off really hard. She's still good, she still does significant damage, but there are better options. And finally, we have Kthuga, a hero I've always been on the fence about. I've had him in the B tier at times, and now I think C tier is probably right for him. He burns opponents when he gets hit. He does massive burst damage, which removes burn effects. But the issue is, if your Kthuga is quicker than your other heroes, when he removes that burn effect, it means no one is going to benefit from Phoenix's buff, or Wolf's buff, because he removes bleed as well. And that makes you think, hang on a second, I'm literally removing 80% bonus attack from my heroes by running a Kthuga. Now, you could run a really, really slow Kthuga and have him at a low level, but arguably that's not very useful. You want to have an E5 hero. Or you can just try and run really quick heroes that outspeed Kthuga, but even then, it's like, Kthuga's just a really awkward hero. He can do lots of damage. He can do a lot of very good damage, especially in early game. If you're running an E5 Kthuga, you can really pop off if it's your only hero. Same, as I said, goes for Ada. But as you get further into the game, there are other strategies that you want to take advantage of, and Kthuga kind of plays against that. He's very much a one-man army and doesn't like playing on a team. And next we have the D tier, which are heroes that can do well. I mean, some of them offer interesting debuffs. You've got heroes like Michelle that can burn. Valentino, interestingly, if you build him for attack, can potentially do a significant amount of damage just from his overload passive when other heroes use their active skills, for example. But these aren't amazing heroes that break the game or deal significantly high amounts of damage, so I would tend to avoid them. A lot of them lack synergy with certain heroes. Valkyrie, for example, does not synergize with Heartwatcher very well at all, because her attack is a fixed number and cannot benefit from damage bonuses. So you end up with just an all-round group of heroes that can do okay, but I would discourage you to build. And finally, the E tier. You are probably surprised to see Sherlock down here, but this is the tier reserved for heroes that are focused around CC. And if you don't know, bosses in PvE are immune to any forms of crowd control. You cannot petrify them, you cannot turn them to doves, you cannot stun them, and you cannot twine them, so these heroes are pretty useless. Corpse Demon, his freeze, and he's a tank. It's not very useful in PvE. Kamath benefits from petrification. You can't petrify bosses. Sherlock, his main key feature is turning enemies into doves. It's not going to happen against bosses. Sure, you could potentially try and skill swap with them, but in PvE, you're trying to not die. And to get to a point where Sherlock is skill swapping is kind of tricky, because you should be running healers on your PvE team, ideally, at least against much harder bosses. Now, against the harder bosses, they're the bosses that are going to trigger Sherlock's skill swap because they hit hard. And that's when you ask the question, am I really going to not run a healer against a hard-hitting boss? No, you really should. So you could end up with a point where your Sherlock isn't getting his health swap off very much, and if he is, it's probably not dealing that much damage because it's capped at Sherlock's attack. So go ahead and build an attack Sherlock, build him really aggressively. Maybe you can do okay. I wouldn't encourage it. It doesn't excite me as a strategy, and it has a lot of things that could go wrong that it's probably not worth doing. It's like trying to build an amazing domino rally in a room with a slight breeze. And if that slight breeze knocks over any of your dominoes, it's like, okay, that didn't work. And that's how I kind of feel about Sherlock in PvE. Now, of course, there's also Oberon, and Oberon's pinnacle is I will deal more damage and buff myself when enemies get twined. Oh, bosses are twine immune. Yeah, sorry Oberon, you're useless. So yeah, that's the PvE tier list. I'll zoom out so you guys get a lovely better view. If you want to find a link to the image, it's in the description, and a lot of you click this and go, oh no, I can't see it, it's not very clear. What you need to do is, if you're viewing from mobile, change to desktop view, and then open it in a new tab. If you're viewing on PC, right click and then say open in new tab for the picture, and it should take you to a much clearer 4K, hopefully, image that will be able to download, and you'll get a much clearer idea of. And there's a lot of smaller annotations on here you might want to read, lots of details that I haven't really gone into, but hopefully it covers a lot and will help you guys perform better in PvE. Now, a few things I want to cover before we finish is that in PvE you should probably be having 3 to 4 damage dealers and 2 to 3 support heroes to find that right balance. As I said earlier, you definitely want to be running a Heart Watcher, healers if you need to keep your team alive, and of course big hitting damagey heroes that synergize well together. Armor reduction is important. Burn or bleed is great if you're running Phoenix or Wolf, and yeah, just please get the most out of your heroes. Please work to deal as much damage as possible, and if you have any questions, do not be afraid to join us on Discord or message out on Reddit and outreach for the amazing people out in the community that can help you loads. Be sure to join us on Tuesday at 7 o'clock PM GMT to join us on our giveaway, which is going to be fantastic. So all you have to do, as I said at the beginning, is you have to tune into our live stream, and the rest will be very clear. What are we giving away? We're giving away CD keys that will give you some great rewards in Idle Heroes. It doesn't matter if you're Android or iOS, if you're on Amazon servers, Huawei servers, it doesn't matter. Anyone can access these codes, and it will give you cool free stuff. So guys, be sure to join us there, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit that subscribe button, guys. It makes you catch more of my content in the future, and it really helps me out just seeing that number go up, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I am actually growing a community here, which is very nice. Now, also, haha, on the side of the screen, you can catch some more of my videos if you enjoyed this, and be sure to check them out. If you haven't already, why don't you like this video and drop a comment down below. Maybe you disagree with something I said, or maybe something I said really resonated with you, and you want to share that below. But yes, I love to hear from you guys, and all feedback is brilliant as long as it's constructive, and thank you for tuning in, guys. Have a great week, and happy idling.